What up, random rockers, and finally, some newer-ish, not really, because apparently they've been around since the 90s, but I digress. But to me, at least, newer-ish band that's, kind of starting to fill my void that it seems a band like Skillet isn't, at least in terms of finding good Christian-based bands. Time I opened it up, talk about them to you. I just kind of found out about them through a certain video from Become the Night. He kind of referenced them, at least in part 2 of this video that he talked about with the Christian music industry. And if this is a band that was able to get his attention, I was like, I don't know why give him a shot. And if they have a new album out, I check them out. Turns out, they have more than that. And, yeah, well, regardless, it's just like a differently weird or a different cold opener. And, let's just, get into this, shall we? Starting, because things are going to be quite packed here on October, and one album had come out, and turns out it was because of another album that had come out earlier in the year. I didn't get a chance to talk about it. I was going to save for a swim, but I'm going to have to do it here instead, because it's basically all the same band. So, and it's time to introduce you to Teramaze. Starting with Sorella Mino. So basically a progressive rock based act that's technically primarily consists of members that have been Christian, and more so founded by Dave Wells. They're apparently from Australia, and by the time they started to really get going and apparently they're considered the premier band in progressive metal because they started in the 90s. They didn't exactly release much in the 2000s, but it seems since a particular Melbourne, Australia act known as Carnival, who played a big part in also sort of building up the more modern idea of progressive metal, eventually it seems Teramaze decided to, or at least Dave Wells decided to get on the bandwagon with that, because they didn't really do much during the big 2000s wave of progressive metal. So I got on board around 2012 and released an album that, granted, the earlier stuff is kind of, I'll admit, proceed with caution. However, I'm probably mispronouncing it. I know it starts with a Adonia. I want to say I pronounced that right, but I could be wrong. But that record, yeah, they needed some updates of production, because not even the remastering they apparently did of their earlier stuff in Doxology and whatnot is good. And this album, Sorella Mino, is the first, came out apparently back in February, and is apparently a sequel to their album Her Halo, which, among my time of deep diving into their discography, was actually one of the ones that did stand out to me in a good way, at least upon first listen. So of a run through, though I never had a chance to deep dive into the concepts of everything, but apparently this is based around it, and it seems that this album specifically is a murder mystery type of thing. So, or at least trying to be a conclusion to what happened in Her Halo, and the opening title track, the mega epic that starts this thing, which I think can be a bit daunting, though I recommend probably watch a music video, because you'll get to see a very interesting ensemble cast. I would say give them credit for being creative, at the very least, with this album. And yeah, not much else I could. I mean, other than that, there are other songs that get at me but they have a way of going into pop posters. Apparently, it seems David Wells was or Dave Wells for short, has used to apparently work in Australia as a prop producer for certain acts there that I'm not aware of, or no, I'm not even sure if they did anything for Silverchair or something like that. Who knows? But it seems some of that has started to rub off a little bit into what they're doing here, in a way that's, I guess, seems to be more in line with what Steven Wilson wound up doing, from like Hand Cannot Erase up to like To the Bone. Specifically, at least with that, or at least something sort of Blackfield, or in that certain specific time period from that's, I'm blanking on the name of one of the albums, but I know the other one is Light Bulb Sun. That sort of thing. That's kind of a Steven Wilson thing. They're doing this, but it's clearly they're more symphonic and very classical theory and context. Looking context and very classical theory oriented in terms of their particular style, which of course like being rooted in power metal, but you could tell they're way more rock oriented and more alt metal based, progressive metal, if anything, at this point, if not, more modern in the sort of gentler sense. It sees they possibly, from what I could gather from the earlier stuff, might have been influenced potentially by Cynics, potentially by certain specific progressive and technical death, maybe Cynic, or certainly the more progressive stuff from Death ish, while also being possibly Dream Theater and the Operation Mindcrime into Empire type eras of like Queen's Rye, or they might have possibly even talked about Fates Warning as an influence. I'm not sure, but I do think they probably looked to Carnival a little bit to inspire their more modern sounds, and it seems to have helped them a little bit. And with this album, I enjoyed what this album was. I'd say if there was any other, aside from the big epic and how diverse it is, and probably being of the more truly progressive tracks on this thing that definitely stand out in a good way, the only other songs I would say, Stone is fine, Between the Shadows is okay, but to me, I think the only other song to me that really kind of stands out in a good way on the heavier side would be Take Your Shot. Or at least they definitely reference a place called Halo or something, mostly a lot throughout Sorella Minore, but it does work as a good hook anyway. I would still, and I'd say for this one at least, I'd say thumbs up. Still give it a shot. Well, a shot. And apparently, I thought this was the only one I would have to deal with in that, but then this week, something else happened. And that album that came out is And the Beauty They Perceive. So, and with this one was a full length, and apparently, according to the band, this album apparently I gotta go to their website to actually get some information. Apparently they didn't have it in their Bandcamp, so, which is fine. But yes, with this particular album, has like 9 tracks. The opening title track was probably among the singles, to me, one of the better tracks for sure. And as well as, and they also kind of released a bonus disc where you can kind of get the instrumentals, by the way. And they recently just put it on Bandcamp too. Yes, yesterday, believe it or not. Because this came out like Tuesday. So I was kind of like, whoa, I thought I had another couple weeks or so, but apparently not. to go to about. And what? They're progressive rock and metal premier band. Blah blah. During the last 11 months, the band has been through multiple statewide lockdowns with no gig opportunities, and we're same room, like most people that have dealt with it all over the world that have been bands, and with apparently it resulted in them creating 3 full-length albums. It seems. I'm not sure if there's another one on the way, or was that, I guess, I'm trying to think of the album that came out last year. If there was an album specifically I missed that came out last year. What was it? Was it the We Are Soldiers or something? Or I think it was I Wonder. But anyways, Dave Wells is the only... Dean Wells. I said Dave, didn't I? I am so sorry. I'm sorry to you, sir. I understand if you get mad, but I figured it out at this point. So I apologize. I'm not the most professional, if you hadn't figured it out. But yes, really, and with this album, dealing with all that, they felt that with this album and the beauty they perceived, have just feeling of rage, despair, hope, frustration, and the occasional tongue-in-cheek lyric that apparently Dean Wells did it slipping seamlessly into the band's songs. Opening and title track of the album shows the band's ability to a punchy, catchy song with a few elements. Closing track, Head of the King, takes the listener on an epic 11-minute journey with the moments of technicality multiple times. With the band having earlier this year talked about having done, which Sorella Mino, which I talked about earlier, was a concept that was a follow-up to her Halo. With this album, with the third that Wells as frontman and taking all lead vocal duties, have welcomed him as the face, which makes sense because I'm trying to figure out who the guy that did the screams and stuff was. I'd like to see him come back, I guess. And him as the face, and that this album tracks that combine the elements of technicality, emotion, orchestration, and catchiness that can be found across the years. I think that's kind of what's happened with this thing, and a lot of dealing with what's been happening with that specific stuff. Not too much to say on it, but I will say that what I have heard of this album is nice. I have this weird feeling, though, that some people that aren't me, though I do notice it a little bit, will probably from the progressive will find this somehow generic in some instance. But regardless of it, no matter what they've done, they've shown they have a sense of talent, great musicianship, and the music they've made is quite enjoyable. Well, in and of itself. Untied was probably one of my least favorites of it, but I do think that the title track here and Jackie Seth are pretty good. And Jackie Seth, I think he had said in a separate video he put out after it was released single that he mentioned it. Waves is probably the most obvious Christian track on here. Despite tracks even like Sunrise, Search for the Unimaginable, like they said, Head of the King, which is pretty good as well. And definitely not a bad way to end this record, making you wanting to come back and listen to it. Bullet of Fools is pretty heavy in and of itself. Good choice to have after having Modern Living Spaces. But I mean, aside from the singles themselves, I don't know if I could say I gravitated to it nearly as much, especially given, they had released Sorella Minore earlier in the year, but this does well. Quite well. I think last year was I Wonder was, I think, the follow-ups to those, and I think these more Dean Wells, I'm sorry, earlier past stupid me. I'm hoping I didn't curse too much in this because I'm trying to do a Christian band, and I apologize if I have as well to you. But yes, but as far as I'm concerned, this album also, I mean, just thumbs up. It's solid. I want to say it rocks, but between them, but I'd say try their earlier stuff, or at least up to from Hedonia up to this point, I think you'll have a fun time listening to and all these things. The We Are Soldiers, I actually kind of gravitate to the most of my listens, actually, aside from the Adonia record. And it's freaking... Those, I believe, between that and Her Halo Rocks. I wish I could say the same for, like I said, with Sorella Mino earlier, but yes, these albums are good. Jackie Seth was nice. Beauty They Perceive, which I think it's more about the way people are about our exterior and how that which is the beauty they perceive, as opposed to the inner mental, the physical aspect, not the more mental and spiritual sense of it, of what beauty truly is. And how through certain things, I guess especially for people online who are like, I guess it's more about simping, really. If you just boil it down to that, about the way that's like giving up the things we love for the love. Just I guess trying to get in the mind of those people that are, I guess, the IG girl types. I don't know if that really works as well. This song would work as well as, say, what I heard about that Instagram girl was from Bo Burnham had done. I don't know, but we'll here nor there with that. But regardless of it all, like I said, all these albums, thumbs up. I would definitely check out the earlier stuff. If you give these albums a chance, but if they don't fully do anything for you, just try their earlier stuff. Maybe you properly start where I kind of had to start with our 2012 release, and then go from there. But proceed with caution with their earlier stuff, the doxology and whatnot. But yeah, I had to get this out there because it just came out earlier, and wanted to let y'all know that finally I have something that can kind of fill in my current more progressive tendency voids, or at least the ones in a symphonic-esque context that I wish another specific Christian band would do instead, that I'm probably never going to get, because that band's remained in a rut in terms of creatively making that other band music, even though I'll probably check it out, but I'll only save it for maybe a swim and just say small little things about it. But anyways, what do you guys think of Teramaze? Did you like Sorella Mino and or The Beauty They Perceive? Leave a comment below, let me know. How you can see if you guys can send this over to the band and see what they think of my very minuscule take, I guess you could say, and which all around thumbs up. Interesting takes and stuff in 2021. I'm happy to finally had a chance to get around to a band that most people don't know about, that actually surprisingly is a good, talented band that happens to be primarily Christian. And whether or not they consider themselves as a Christian band, some may still be up in the air at times, but I don't think they deny it if you say that they are, compared to some bands. But what did you think of these bands? Leave a comment below, let me know. As always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, y'all.